we'll talk about purity. Purity has many ideas to it, and because most people are literally minded, and they'll tend to understand purity as synonymous with, let's say, as white as snow. But even snow can be chemtrail contaminated. When we say purity is one of the virtues of new presentation, it conjures many images in the minds of people. I see purity against a backdrop of real intent. So, what can you say about this, Duane, to clarify, to clear the air on this purity issue?
Purity is a specific, okay, and it's actually very specific. Again, I've said many times, I like purity and sincerity. Like the sun shining, it's sincere, and life is that. It's sincere, so I just see it as pure sincerity. And purity is exactly that. In the personal sense, I see that for the most part it's going to be taken for granted, which is understandable, because again, that's the idea of being Puritan or being a perfectionist, something along those lines. And I get it. These are ideas, and we're not looking for that so much so in the personal self, because the personal self survives. It can only survive in cause and effect creation. It can't survive in the real universes. So with cause and effect, there cannot be purity. So what we're referring to is the real awareness here. The isness life is. Okay, it's actually the isness life is pure. It is so pure that and so endless that just like in Paul's experiences, etc., you can only come so close to this, because again, it becomes to where you actually if you were to become part of it in the absolute sense, you would not recognize yourself at all, because that would be just like you becoming like the air of the ocean, you see. So you have to stand back a little bit, you might say, in the real universes too. You have to stand back a little bit so that you can take part consciously with what's taking place. Very interesting how this is, how life is. There's no definite here, but in cause and effect creation, the idea of purity is an aspiration, something to aspire to, because it's endless. That's how I see it. But there's no absolute with it. With the personal self, this becomes the difference. So this where again, where I wrote some of the groups about know your five bodies, simply because most people have, they have just shoved themselves together, all the five bodies together, into just being this human person only. And it's better to learn to be more objective and more objective and more objective about the cause and effect creation that you're in, so you better understand it, and according to your real awareness, because you do need this comparison and to be objective about it. Otherwise you become, again, you keep being more literalized, you become more self-convinced that you know something. And guess what? It's really the opposite. When you have the awareness that you know nothing, then you will see everything and you will act accordingly. That's the big deal too, is to act accordingly. And this is where the real guides provide that. So as long as the person has that, oh, well, I know what I'm doing, I listen to the guides and whatever. Well, that's a cute story, but guess what? That isn't it either. No, not at all. So people can be self-convinced, and that's the personal self, but purity itself, no, that's a very interesting area. Realistically, and not just artificially that what people have here. You know, the religions talk about how Jesus was pure and God is pure and all these things like that. Well, it's really not so. Those are cute stories, but it really has nothing to do with the recognition of the isness. There is a difference. And so this is where, you know, I first started off as the is and it became the all is. And then I put the 3 S's and the 3 L's there, a specific, because this separates it just from is to is, from IS to ISS. There is a difference, but each person has to decide to see that. So purity, it's there. I see it. This is what I focus on because it's endless. It is an endlessness, but I don't assume that I am that reality. I put this reality first, this true reality first, and I am the experiencer. I see what it is. There's a difference, you see? So again, it's not in the sense that, oh, I am pure, I focus on purity, so I am pure. No, it's not the I am thing with myself. Other people can do it. It seems to be so, but it's just kind of a funny deal when people think of that in their personal sense. They like to use their mind to use ideas. That's not it. That's really not it. Being self-convinced is a very interesting position that we have here. So, and implying and implementing the bigger picture, boy, that's the challenge, to do what others really can't see. So, yeah, so much for that. But the true purity that life is, it's this endless position of recognizing what it is and what it is providing, what it already is as the provider for all of us as we're all in it. Yes, Charles, there you go.
People are going to think that people are going to associate it at one time with righteousness and all that. And think that and bring in all these values that we have on the in the human consciousness. You know, these pet ideas about being pure, just, sincere, and all the like. So they will wrap it around this word purity, or they may look at, oh, no friends, oh, these are people who are very pure, or they claim to be pure, yet they do this kind of things, and they do that. So they begin, because they look at this quality from a limited perspective. And when I said, for instance, purity can be determined by one's real intent. So what do you say about it?
No, that's very good, Charles. So again, all right, let's look at the real difference as opposed to, again, the one-dimensional mind that literalizes everything. And that is that never specified us being pure, or myself or whatever, never specified that. But yes, the personal self takes it that way. I know I've talked to many people, and they twist what I say totally around because they don't have the experience of being objective. They're one-dimensional, so they're going to go off their experience. And so that's understandable, but what I'm referring to is the isness. It's a reference, just like what I'm creating. It's a reference to, I'm not talking about myself. I see what I see. I'm the universal seer, you see. I see this reality. I see how it is. I see how to support it. This is why I do what I do. And that takes agreement too, and everybody has their idea, but it's not about me, okay? I don't claim to be pure, and I don't claim that we're pure. We're just wonderful worldwide educators. That's what I specify. That's what we are. And so that locked that in with the domain name. Okay, that's life today. But in no way do I specify that. But yes, people will take that. They will start to twist it because that will be kind of a subtle sarcasm on their part, to where that, oh, you think you're this or that or whatever. And, many times these are religious people because they've already got their know-it-all position, self-convinced with their reptilian god. So, of course, they're going to stand up for that. I get it. So this is the challenge, isn't it? Here's your challenge. And that is that I don't really, I kind of see the playing field and what people consider, but I don't want to think for them. And whatever they think is fine. I'm fine. I'm fine with it. Because again, and I'm fine with the confrontation, and I'm fine if they protest and hate me. Thing being is that that's fine. At least we got their attention. And so you work it from there. So when I put something out there, I do see what is going on. I don't see all of it, of course not. I can't see all of it. There are things that are taking place, and there's considerations there. I can't go over everything because I'm limited myself by what I can present here in this one-dimensional arena. But yes, get real. The thing being is that, just like in the corporation, when you join the corporation, all of a sudden, oh, you learned all these things, and oh, everything was great. It's like, oh, wow, we're spiritual, and oh, we know what's going on, the rest of the world doesn't. Well, get ready for the wake up, and that is that it's still not what you personally think, because life is bigger. And so you have a whole world actually locked in discrimination, being self-convinced by themselves, thinking this or that, whatever. And that's all fine. They have the right to do it. But that's not my position. I'm just sharing what's going on here and pointing to the isness, and see who has the awareness, even though they think they do, they really don't, for the most part, about this reality. Again, it's shown in their speech and their mannerism and what they do, etc. But this is the world. It's one-dimensional. So, yeah, you want to be ready for this, because this is the challenge as you wake up. So not thinking that, oh, we're the good guys now, and whatever we do is fine. I don't see that way either. I don't think in those terms that we're right and they're wrong. No, it's not about that. It's just that we're doing what we can and pointing to the is and the real guides. The real guides are the intermediates, because the isness, you're not going to just recognize and realize the isness. This is where the real guides come in as the intermediates, to introduce the individual little at a time to this reality. And so it didn't really happen so much, so in a way it did, but for the most part it didn't in Paul's time, because it was too much. And so even now it becomes a whole lot more so. But this is the challenge, Charles. And yes, it's okay to consider what the world sees. We see that, but at the same time, we're not going to be doing their thinking, or are we going to imply that even though they take it that way, that we're this or that, because we're not. Because again, we're presenters. That's what we really are. We're presenting certain things. We're not absolutes like Christians and ecists and moralists and all these things. These people are self-defined. They've self-defined themselves in a one-dimensional area. No, we're not that at all. This is where I created the idea of universal seers or whatever. So, we're universal. We're more than that. And that applies to the real universe. This is the fun part. And we see what's going on. We're not proclaiming, oh, this land is ours, this is mine, etc. We're not proclaiming things like people do here. And again, they have the right to do it, but that's not us. So the challenge to present something real and the adventure of it, it's ongoing, isn't it? Yeah, so all these things that you're bringing up, people need to better understand. But we're not the Puritans here. We're not the right or the do-gooders. We're just having fun presenting what's real and what makes sense. Yeah, that's the best part.